So we had what's called capital, and you have what's called mints. And that's what I was kind of talking about on the previous episode. You may want to check that out. But when you get into monetizing, there's different levels of it's like a network marketing company, the way I look at it. And as I continue to monetize, I'm going to eventually, over time, turn this into kind of like a teaching course through YouTube to teach people about monetizing. But I still want to point out that you can monetize outside of YouTube. So that's what I want to point out. So when you start talking about monetizing, you got a channel, you got views, you got a title to your video, you have the video content itself, you got to produce the video. So there's different levels to it or whatever. So when you monetize, so when I talk about like people that's got millions of views and they still don't own it, that's because there's outside sources that helps you to do X, Y, and Z. And even a lot of those outside sources don't have total ownership over what's called the views. And this is because of what's called monetization. And I'm going to go into that. But first and foremost, what you have to do is that you got to monetize on different levels, because many people, they're receiving what's called capital gain. That's what I want to kind of get into first. When they're getting credit for monetization, or even if you're getting credit from outside of YouTube, we can even talk about like credit card credit or any kind of credit. This is like capital, essentially. And this is money and credit and stuff like that that's left over from the titles and from name credit that they offer out and give out, and you call it credit. That's one aspect of credit. That's what you consider personal credit. And that's the big difference or whatever. So when you start talking about high levels of business credit, these people go to other planets to draw this kind of credit. They don't teach us this stuff, but the planets and what you think, and they taught you in school that, you know, the planets are just out there and they have no relationship as far as communication with the Earth, like what goes down on X, Y, Z planet is not going to affect our economy. Like say, for instance, what goes down on Mars won't affect the Earth or whatever, which is not true because of the fact of our moon. And that's what I'll get deeper into, but I want to kind of start talking about it now, is that our moon is where a lot of our financial system, a lot of the secrets about our financial system is hidden on what's called our moon. Now, our moon is an interesting thing because our moon shifts. It moves. So there's times, depending on where you're at and what's going on, where you could be on the moon. I know this may sound crazy, like, but I'm on Earth, what are you talking about? The moon used to be a part of the Earth at one time. According to most of my research, even science, they're going to say that the moon was a part of the Earth. They don't know how it got blown off. Some people say it was a war, whatever. I think that it was, I continue to think that it's a war based upon me knowing where it was blown off at. I've been to those spots where the actual chunk of the moon was supposed to be blown off at. And I do truly believe that it was a war. And the moon getting blown off kind of put a hole in the Earth's head, the surface, and it threw off the kundalini of the Earth and the financial system of the Earth. So when the Atlanteans were here on this planet, it was a different moon we were interfacing with. The reason why we were more abundant and had more wealth during the times of the Atlanteans is because of the fact that we had certain credit and certain energies that were still connected to this planet. We're not disconnected and separated. You see, now, when that happened, that's when we took it off the gold standard. All this stuff happened as far as us devaluing and losing our credit because of our disconnect with certain planets. So now at this point, there's different rituals and experiments that you can do to get someone to be in an environment where the moon's energy is in dominant control. We call this being on the moon. You may still see it out there, but there's times on this Earth where the environment is totally controlled by the rays of the moon or the light of the moon. and even the craters of the moon. There's technology within the craters and things of that nature of the moon. So what a good, and I'll say this and I'll shut down, to prove that they have taken a group of people to the moon, whether they have realized it or not. The only way to prove that is through what's called mints. It's called mints. And it's a difference between capital and mint. So when you see people getting views, I know I talked about this earlier, but I'm trying to take it, I'm bringing this point home as we go into, because I'm going to go into what the New York Yankees actually represent and why I'm looking at that team as one of the number one teams to close and put a pin on the ritual, even though the ritual's been complete. Like I told you on the last episode, I mean, we've already made over 25 videos that hit the minimum level. So we've already done that. And the only thing now you would do is that you would just invest into what's called the mints. So we already did that. And I got a check back and received the check back. Like I did a ritual was based on the number 57. And I closed off that ritual. And the number 57 is what rules mints. Capital is ruled by 56. So before you can say that you've closed out and have done like a ritual, for instance, you saying the doors closed on that ritual, you got to have at least 56 units to prove that, whether it's 56 days, 56 of something you've counted, to get into, if you want to get credit out of that. To get into credit, you'd have to have 56 of something already counted. Now, to get into credit out of mints, which really is money, actually. So, see, capital gives you credit, doesn't necessarily give you money back. You get into mints, this is when you get into money back. Once you visa those mints through monetization, now at this point, you have ownership in that video, and the contents of that video can be used as a credit card to pay for things and to cash out in exchange for things. So it becomes a bartering tool over time. Very wealthy way of exchanging, and I'm really glad YouTube came out, because I already knew about monetizing from school and from studying military science. That's where monetizing comes from. But with YouTube, it makes it so easy to explain with the way the platform is set up. I can use this platform to teach you, as I'm doing now, through the YouTube platform, but I'm teaching you about monetization on a higher level, though. That's what you got to remember. The YouTube is just a platform to teach you what's going on, and that's what we're going to talk about, what's going on, exactly what's going on with the moon, and how these news companies and a lot of these music groups are getting all of these high views. It's because of their links to extraterrestrial currency and technology. We'll come up with more. Got to get up out of here. Stay vigilant. Have a good day. Namaste.